Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here, as always. We're going to talk about a project that we've been running last year, or during the past few months also. And I'm going to first give you an overview of other things we are up to in the archives level, in the Yle Archives. So my name is Lauri, nice to meet you all. Just for a little bit of a background information, we are a internal archives unit within the National Broadcasting Company in Finland. So we are not the national archives for audiovisuals, we are not the legal deposit, but we focus mainly on what happens inside the media company for production needs, for publication needs. Maybe what's good to note in the context of this presentation is that we are a multiple content type archives. So we have film, video, radio, music recordings, we have information services and different content teams to go with them. So typically 5 to 10 people in one team. But what we do not have is an internal IT team. So we rely quite heavily on the company technical department on all things technical. If we focus on AI topics, then for the past few years now we've been trying to focus on actual value and practical value and getting something that benefits our teams and our archivists instead of, say, research and development and all possible cutting edge new things. So some of the things we are talking about today may seem a bit outdated or old even to some of you, but the main focus has been on finding something that works, that we can benefit from and keep using on a weekly basis or on a daily basis. And typically our teams are essential in that. So I'll talk a bit about the skills and the roles that we have in our different teams, but the team level is focal here. And a typical life cycle of a thing, whatever project we are building, goes in something like this, so that we do prototyping and early testing, and if it seems to carry value and seems to be useful to us, then we try to build it into something more permanent. And it's a kind of philosophy or a way of thinking, but it's good to note that it also gives background to the radio case Ronja is going to talk about in just a minute. But then what do we need to know in different teams or different parts of the organization to make this work? I mentioned that the team level is really important to us, and that's where the knowledge and the understanding on how we would like to work with different content types, that's where we have the like, how do we relate to, say, automated metadata with this content, with the existing databases we have, the ways of and routines of working we have. That all that happens on the team level, and we have decided that these judgments should be made on the team level if possible. And we have tried to include at least one person with technical skills in all our teams to help the early testing, early prototyping, so that teams can quite independently move on quickly with things they see as necessary or potentially valuable to them. And that also helps in keeping things up and running, so the technical skills within the teams can sometimes help in just moderating and fixing some of the easier issues that may come, technical issues. And from the archives level, the few of us working there, we try to support the teams in all this. We try to find the possible collaborators, possible partnerships for our teams, for technical projects, etc. We of course support the more strategic, longer term planning. So teams typically focus on quite near future planning, and we try to support the longer thinking, where are we heading, where should we be heading, and that type of discussion. And of course, also the dialogue between teams and across teams needs support and fostering. So sometimes it can happen that one team is so focused on their own content and their own work that we need to somehow manage and make it possible for teams also to share ideas and talk across team boundaries. Then if we zoom a bit out on the organization level or department level, we have seen a kind of shift in the past years now in the sense that we no longer need to know as much about everything in the archives as we needed to know a couple of years back, especially related to AI. We need to know the basics, but little by little we get to see that there are possible partners that can help us, that we can collaborate with, that make our lives easier and take away some of the concerns we have had or are having at the moment. The latest newcomer it's the orange box over there. We have now for a few months had a company level AI team, a small team, but still it's there, and that focuses on responsibility and compliance and safety topics around AI, because it's not only about the archives. There are multiple different AI topics within a media company, and that team helps with all of these topics. So we no longer need to worry that much about terms of use and licenses and backgrounds of different companies and different vendors. We have someone we can relate to and rely on. And then what does that leave us in the archives? One typical conversation that we keep on having, and a constant conversation that we keep on having with our teams is, what could we actually want? What is possible? So if we rely on the teams to make their own decisions and choices to some extent, then we somehow need to build up the knowledge and manage the knowledge and understanding on what is possible, what could we want, because it's like a blocker. If you don't know the possibilities around you, then how can you state out that this is how we would like to work if you don't even know what is possible for you to ask for? And that seems to be something that we need to keep on going, provide possibilities for dialogue within the teams, with technical specialists across teams, and also in seminars like this. So MMC and other professional seminars are really valuable to us in the sense that we get to see and hear how things have been done elsewhere and what we possibly could do next. So it's all about exchange of ideas in that sense. And then to give you an overview of where we are now, the green boxes are things that we have in production that we rely on weekly basis. The yellow, the orange ones are something we are actively considering at the moment or looking into. But overall, the focus of Yle Archives is on the blue large box, so looking into ways of increasing the productivity of archive work. How do we produce metadata? How do we manage our collections in an easier way? And partly that is because of some quite heavy budget cuts we have had earlier this year. So we need to do less. No, we need to do more with less. And I hope it would be the other way around. But what's worth mentioning here is that for the first time, it has been part of the official assignment given to us with the budget cuts, that you need to look into new technologies to make your lives easier and make your work more productive. So it's no longer from our own motivations only and our own grounds on planning and thinking and building things. For the first time now, it has been assigned to us that you must do these things, and that is one of the reasons we focus on the the blue area here in that diagram. Of course, there are multiple different things that are interesting within the AI sphere and within those topics, but this is what we are focusing on currently and will be focusing on for some time now. But then Ronja will take you through one of the projects, radio summaries, and the details that went into that work. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. I'm Ronja Halter. I'm an archive editor for the Finnish Broadcasting Company, and I work in the radio archive team. So, I wanted to begin with explaining where we started with this. So, we have this objective in the archives of improving the discoverability and the searchability of our collections. And what we have, for example, is a large amount of old audio material that's not very well documented, and we just don't have the time to document it by hand. So what we did is we put it through automatic speech recognition to give it at least some metadata to make it discoverable. We've now done this for 90s and early 2000s, and we're working through the 80s. About 60,000 programs have been speech recognized, and they are now discoverable. So now we have all these transcripts, and that's really great. But we have noticed some things that we could maybe improve. So the first thing is that we purposefully decided not to include the transcripts in a general search, because it would just create a lot of noise in the search results. So the person doing the search now has to know that they need to target their search to speech recognition. And not everyone might know that, even though we tell people to do that. And then the other thing is that when you find a program, it's quite time consuming to understand what it is about. So here's an example program that I picked out. As you can see, the content description is quite minimal, so there's like nothing to tell you what the program is about. And then you have a really long transcript that you would have to read through to understand what they're discussing. And then the last thing is that we also decided to save this into an API and not the actual archive database, so we're not creating permanent metadata, so to say. Here's the timeline of how we worked on this. So we started working on this with the whole team because we really felt that we needed to learn more about AI and language models and prompting. So we took those transcripts, we started experimenting with them just to see what we could come up with. And we had meetings every 2 weeks or so to discuss what we've been doing and what we've been learning. And we tried a lot of different things, but then we decided to keep working on the summaries because we thought that would be the most fruitful thing to work on. And that's when we started working on this as a smaller group, and we really started hammering down on the prompt and choosing the appropriate language model to use. And that's when we also started having weekly meetings, so we could have more time to discuss these issues. Then once we got the prompt in pretty good shape, we started working on the technical matters, so thinking about where we should keep the summaries. We decided to go with putting them into the archive database, and then we needed to figure out what the user interfaces, so the archive search and the documentation tool would look like, and how to automate the process of prompting and sending the summary to our database. And now we have come up with an initial workflow for this, and we are using this every day. Okay. Prompting and comparing language models. So this is what we aimed for. So we wanted to do summaries instead of, for example, topic words, because we already have content descriptions in our database, and we thought that the summaries would be kind of adjacent to that. And then another thing is that topic words, for example, they wouldn't really offer as much information as a summary would. So, yeah. Then we wanted to have one prompt that could be used for different kinds of programs, because we just thought it would be easier to start with that one prompt, work out how to do that, and then if we felt that we needed to do or create different kinds of prompts for different programs, we could always do that later. And then maybe the most important thing is that we didn't want to be checking every summary after creation, because we just don't have the time to do that. So we did a lot of checking and the testing and the verifying in the piloting phase before moving on to actually generating the summaries and putting them into a database. And we are putting them into a separate field, so they're not in the content description field, they're in their own field. And we are telling the users that this is automatically generated metadata, so there's no room for mistakes or errors. So about the prompting, we really worked in iterations with this. So we basically started with something, saw what the outcome looked like, then made evaluations and changes into the prompt, and then we did that over and over again until we came up with the prompt that's on the right there. And I picked out the main instructions in the prompt into those orange boxes. And just to point out one example of this iterative work is that we really had an issue of there being evaluations of the program in the summaries. So basically the AI gives their own opinion on the program. So that's when we added that neutral description instruction into the prompt, so it would minimize the amount of evaluations of the program. Then some observations about the prompting. So the first thing is that the iterative work of prompting and evaluating and making changes, it takes a lot of time. But we felt that we really needed to do that experimentation in order to know what we wanted out of a summary and to see what worked and what didn't. Then one thing we also tried is we tried giving an example program and an example summary to the language model, but we didn't really see it improving the results. And that's maybe because we gave it a lot of text to go through, so it probably couldn't keep up with all of that. And then we knew that the language models are not good with numbers, but we tried it anyway. And we, for example, gave word limits on the length of the summary, but we felt that it couldn't really follow those, so we instead changed it to verbal instructions. And while we were doing the prompting, we were also comparing different language models. So we took 3 language models that were available to us, gave it the same prompt and the same program. Then we took all the parameters and the input and the results, put them just into a Google Doc and made observations on the quality of the summaries. And just an example of what we found was quite interesting is that the length of the summaries really differed between the different language models. So we wouldn't have known that unless we would have tried different language models. Then we also experimented with temperature. So we had this issue of certain kinds of programs like satire and humor and children's programs, for example, being misinterpreted by the language model. And it basically put wrong information into the summary. So here's an example, or a couple example summaries, and the program that I used is this satiric program portraying Finland not joining the EU and what happened after that. And with the original temperature we used, which is 0.7, it never tells the reader that this is not an actual real situation. So it portrays the contents as truth. And then really interesting thing is that when we lowered the temperature, it often made better interpretations of the program. And in this example, it immediately tells the reader that this is a fictional scenario. Then let's look at the results. So I think we unfortunately have to skip this one, but this is the interesting stuff anyways. So this is the same program that I showed you before. And now next to the, or below the content description, we have an automatic content description. And now it's really easy to see that the topic is space and astronomy. You don't have to look through the long transcript anymore. And then we also included this into a general search, so the searcher no longer has to know that they need to target their search to a specific field. And now there are around 12,000 summaries in our database. And just to sum up, we can look at a couple of things that we're doing now. So first thing is that this is ongoing work, and we're going to keep making more summaries. And this is only the first iteration of this process. We are also using this process in documenting newly digitized items. So before, when the documentarist had to read or listen through the program to know what it was about, instead they put it through speech recognition and make a summary out of it, and they have to do much less work. And then some things that we are interested in doing in the future is expanding to other languages. So we're currently only doing this for Finnish, but we also have a lot of Swedish and Sami language programs in our archives that would really benefit from this. And something that we already tried before but couldn't really get to work is making summaries with timestamps. So we'd really like to revisit that and try that again. Yeah, thank you.